Marley, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Of course. I had you on the show, so it seems like it's just, something that we had to do.
Yeah, I love it. I love a good pod trade. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about exactly what you do and who you serve as a health coach?
Yeah. So my health coaching really focuses on relationship around food because that's something that has been such a huge part of my journey. And I know that over time, especially women, we have gone through so many different diets and so many different fads. And it's almost kind of felt like we've lost touch with ourselves and what our bodies are telling us. And we almost can't trust ourselves anymore with food or with exercise and all of these things. So, my job really is to build that trust back up from within and building that confidence and focusing on some of these more functional issues with hormones and adrenals and all of these things because from years of dieting, there's a lot that is happening under the surface. So I really like to attack things from like the root cause. And just like you deal with a lot of trauma that people have faced, there's also a lot of trauma people deal with in terms of their bodies and the way they've grown up around food. So that's really my approach to coaching and how I like to help women.
I love that. And that's so important. Like those two things in specific, the relationship with food and the hormones. I mean, that is something no one has taught us the real deal about those two things, how important it is, or like how to go about it in a constructive, sustainable way. And so your work is very, very needed in the world. And I'm hoping that our generation is finally the generation that like breaks that unhealthy, that really that toxic relationship with food that like our mothers had and it just women have had in all throughout history.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that from me personally, so my background and why I got started into just working out in general is from a young age. I struggled with an eating disorder. And I remember my mom telling me growing up how she used to struggle with an eating disorder. And I know she was trying to help me, but she almost like put that trauma on me. And then it's something that I developed and I hid from her for a very long time. So when I was like middle school, high school, all the way into college, I had an eating disorder. And the one thing that really helped me through that was the gym. So my freshman year of college, I started working out at my university and it helped me like just have this level of confidence that I never had in myself. I never felt like I was good enough or that I always had this self-doubt. And the gym made me feel so empowered. And it's been like 13 years now, and I still go to the gym 4 to 5 times a week. And it's just something that's become part of my life. So that's something that I really love to share with people because I feel like a lot of us have a past and we tend to let that define us. And we tend to let like that diagnosis define us. And it's like, even though I had an eating disorder, that doesn't mean that that's who I am now or that's who I have to be my whole life. And I talk about this a lot, but something that I can actually really appreciate is that time in my life, because if I would have never had that eating disorder, I would have never understood things from that perspective. I would not be able to help people in the way I do today. So even though it was a very low point in my life, it has honestly shaped who I am today and how I can help other people. So although it's not something that's like glamorous or sexy, it's just a part of my life. And I use that as something that can help inspire other people to show them, hey, you can come from anything and you can become whoever you want to be.
Yes. Oh my gosh, snaps for that. We love that. I think we talked a little bit about that when I was on your podcast of like, just because that's who you are doesn't mean you have to keep carrying it with you. Like every day is a fresh start and it's baby steps and it's a process to achieve that kind of transformation. But where you're like you being able to say that now is such a testament to how far you've come and how much of a journey it's been.
Yeah. And I mean, it's crazy because for the longest time, that was my identity. And no one knew about it. It was something I struggled with in silence. So it was my identity internally. It's not like I would
Mhm.
tell people that, but it's just something that I identified with on a very like deep level. And it was something that was just very traumatic for me. So finding new outlets and ways to take care of myself that didn't have to do with controlling food and, just being able to be a little bit more creative outside of that space was something that was huge. And one of the biggest things that helped me was just speaking my truth, because for the longest time, I didn't talk to family or friends or people about it. But I noticed that when I started to open up and share my story, and especially like on Instagram, when Instagram first became more popular, I talked about that part of my journey. And even though it was painful, you realize how many other people are struggling with things that you know nothing about
Mhm.
because they feel like they're alone. And it really helped me understand that I was never actually alone. I just felt like I had to be alone and struggle in silence. So that was something that was really helpful for me. It's just like being able to talk about it and understand that people are not going to jump to judge you because they are also going through their own battles.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so good. Connection really does cure. Absolutely. Was there a point, because you talked about the gym
Mhm.
being something like an outlet for you, and then you talked about speaking your truth being transformational for you. Was there a point when you realized consciously, I am going to have to do something to change my identity and like make this not me anymore? Or did that happen like naturally over time?
I wouldn't say it was natural because there was a lot of resistance and it's a lot of challenge to be able to fix years of certain behaviors and certain patterns. Like it takes a lot of time. But something that was a huge catalyst for me was my freshman year of college. I lived in dorms and we had communal bathrooms. So, like, I couldn't just like have an eating disorder and hide it from people. So my fear of like being found out as a fraud or a phony from people was something that scared me so much that I was like, you know what? It's not worth being that person. Like I have to be authentic and real to myself and to the people around me that are my friends. So that was something that really helped me have that light bulb moment of like, okay, something needs to change. Like I can't be someone when no one's watching and then a different person when I'm around people. I was like, it just doesn't feel good inside. So that was a huge part of my journey, was just realizing that it's okay to have that shift and then there's gonna be some resistance. And I think I talked about this the other day. It's like we see challenge and resistance as a bad thing. But to me, that means that I need to just look within and say, hey, what is this teaching me? And where are my weaknesses? Where this resistance is showing me, like, hey, these are some things that you still have to work on because you're not there just yet. And years ago, I never saw it that way. I just saw it as like, oh, this just means I shouldn't be doing this specific thing.
Mm,
But as I've gotten older and as I've grown and as my mentality has changed, I've realized that resistance is part of the journey. And every time I have that moment where like it feels like the world is absolutely pushing against me, usually a breakthrough is like a day later. No kidding. I have that resistance and I'm like, I don't know if I'm like in the right place or doing the right thing. And I look within and I'm like, okay, what can I do? What can I focus on? And I kid you not, like within a day or two, I get the answers that I've been working towards. But if I would have never like surrendered to that, that moment wouldn't have happened.
yes. Oh my goodness. I that's so funny. I was thinking, yeah, I was remember walking out of the gym the other day and thinking to myself, you know what? From now on, as soon as I start like getting like irritated by something, like mildly triggered, or I like to say activated by something, and I start to resist one specific thing, I'm just going to like swing the door wide open to that thing, whatever it is, and do it, or like open my mind to it at least, because that's always the thing at the end of the day. Like the resistance is the way, right? Like that's always the thing that we resist for so long, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this has been trying to tell me something, or like maybe someone's been doing something that's really bothering you, right? And that it's just always the pathway that you need to be walking down. And it's like, how long is it going to take us to just realize that that's always the thing? So I love that. That's so smart. And I'm curious, how have you, because for me anyway, doing that, it always takes, being able to put my ego to the side. I mean, that's always the thing that's in the way. What is that process like for you of not letting your ego get in the way?
Oh gosh. So mentally, I struggle with the fact of when I do something new or challenging or hard, I think that I should just automatically be good at it. And I know that there's so many people listening that can relate to this. If you're just getting started in the gym or just getting started with something with nutrition or, implementing new stress management techniques, like it does feel hard, but it doesn't mean that you're not supposed to be doing that. I think that we lost that childlike sense of wonder and learning because when we were kids, everything was hard at first. Like you would walk, you would play sports, like you had no idea what you were doing and you failed. And you might have cried a little bit, but you got back up and you still continued to do those things that you weren't good at. But eventually you got better at them, or else you wouldn't be walking today. You wouldn't be able to do a lot of the things you're doing like the alphabet, like, simple things like learning the alphabet or doing math. But I think as an adult, we get caught in this like conundrum of thinking that we should just be good at something at first and surrendering to the fact that you're not always going to be good at something, but you can continue to work at it and it can evolve and you can get better is really something that I've had to work on and work through because a lot of times the most challenging parts of my journey have led to some of the best moments, but I had to like sit through it. Like I had to really just learn and let my ego and pride go to the side. And I know as an adult, it's very hard to do that because you see so many other people out there and you compare what they're doing and their journey. But it's like you are not comparing their day one to your day one. You're comparing their like year three to your day one, right? Like you're not there yet, and it's okay.
Yes, and it's okay. Adult learning is something different, something entirely different. It's just so crazy how like something gets lost along the way, right? Like we really do forget what it's like to learn something new because that's just so normal as children. Then all of a sudden we think we should be masters at everything right off the bat, and that's just truly not how it works.
Yeah.
Interesting. Oh, I had a question for you. I got it. Have you read The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson?
Yes. Yes, I have.
Yes.
In a little while, but I definitely have. And I think that's something that we all need to remember. Like when you are so worried about the opinions of others and how other people will perceive you, it's gonna be so hard to show up and try new things and even to fail. Because I know for the longest time, like for me specifically, doing new things at the gym was really intimidating. Like I would focus on doing more balance style stuff and more mobility stuff. And I was like, oh my God, what if people see me like stumble and fall and not do well? Like I'm supposed to be a gym girl. How can I do that? And I had to reframe it and go, that could actually inspire someone to try something new because they're seeing someone who always does something and does it well, and they're trying something new and they're not doing it well at first, but they're still doing it. So that's something that I had to shift to is like, how can this help someone? Because it potentially can. Because if I only show up and do the things I'm good at, that's not really a way for me to learn at the same time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And our vulnerability is so much more in that way and in other ways, like leading with that is so much more impactful and actually like helpful for people that we're serving, whether we know it or not, whether it's just like people watching us or clients that we're working with. That's so much more helpful than just like being great at everything all the time because that's not reality. So if we're not showing both sides, like what's the point? Like how is it really helping anyone if we're only showing one side of the story? what stood out to me the most in that book, because I read it not long ago, and like being on theme with, kind of humbling yourself and learning something new and not being good at it at first, is how he talked about, how broke down the idea of entitlement and how most people are entitled in one way or another, whether they think something should be really easy for them and they should get it right away, or they think it's like extra hard for them and they are like special in that way. And letting go that entire sense of entitlement and just saying, you know what, like I'm not entitled to be good at this or be super successful at this just because I've done it a couple of times. And the people who went before me and who are really great at this probably weren't either. Like there's nothing special about me. So I just thought that was interesting. Just wrapped into what we were talking about. But coming back to your entrepreneurship journey, because we do have entrepreneurs in the audience, and you're full time in your business now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we both know that entrepreneurship requires a good bit of discomfort, to say the least. So if you're open to it, I would love to hear about like some of the ways that you have intentionally gotten uncomfortable for the sake of growth that's related like to your business, but also, just like your growth in life as a whole as well.
Oh, of course. So this is kind of related to just me as a person. I am not great at asking for help. I am not great at admitting I need help or that I can't always do something. So for me, I didn't necessarily know I even wanted to start a business. I just knew that I loved helping people. And if you've taken an Enneagram personality test, like I am tied between a 2 and a 3, so I'm a giver and an achiever. So me being a coach kind of really like goes hand in hand with those two things because I'm helping people, but I also want to achieve something for myself at the same time and for other people at the same rate. So during COVID, I was working at a restaurant, and as you know, all of those businesses got closed. So I was laid off. I had never been laid off. I had signed up for life coaching with Sean McDevitt, which I know you know Sean. So legitimately, the week before the world closed down, I agreed to sign up for like 3 or 6 months of life coaching, and I paid in full. Then the world closed down, and I was like, oh my God, what did I do? And I decided, I said, you know what? This is the perfect time to stick with this. I have more free time than ever. And through those life coaching sessions, we were able to really understand what I wanted to do and how I wanted to help people. And that's how I got started. I first got into nutrition coaching and being able to like come up with recipes and help people through just some of the simple things. And it really just evolved over time. And over the last, it'll be almost 4 years now. I've had my business, I've had multiple coaches, I've learned something from all of them. And I've had to really surrender to the fact that like it's okay to ask for help. And I know a lot of times we want to be that do it yourself. I don't need anyone. I'm an independent woman. Like I get it. You know, my parents raised me as the oldest child, so I feel like I had that very independent nature, but it kind of bit me in the butt at the same time because it was almost like I would try to be ultra dependent where I acted like I didn't need help or guidance. But having eyes outside of your own perspective has been something that has transformed not only me personally, but me as a business owner. Because if you don't have someone that is also just there to have a hand in your business and be able to say, hey, I think this would work out or this would be a better alternative, like I probably wouldn't have started a podcast. I wouldn't be diving more into like the functional side of coaching, which has been so helpful for my clients. I would have been stuck in that like macros and doing workouts for people. And yes, that is so helpful, but there's so many different facets to being able to coach people. And everyone is so unique and different that every coach I've had has really offered a new perspective, and that's been something that I feel like has been almost invaluable and that a lot of us don't realize that we need until we have it. Because I know that you've also like gone through different courses and you've been focused on continued education because there is so much to learn. And that's also something I love is like no 2 days are really ever the same 100%. There's always something a little bit different. My clients are always going through something different, which I love, but that means that I'm always going to be able to evolve and grow and adapt. But that's also the really scary part because you realize that you can't just stay in the same spot. Because if I was the same entrepreneur that I was in 2020, I really don't think that would work for me now and my clients, which is kind of crazy to look back and see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like you grow and you grow so fast just by, again, being that eternal student, being willing to ask for help, being willing to not know, like not always be the expert, not be the smartest one in the room. And that can be, I mean, that is challenging, right? Because like it never ends. It's a never ending journey, which is so beautiful, which is why like entrepreneurship is all about adaptability and like being able to pivot and to change and just to adapt with everything that you're learning and how you're growing. And I'm curious, I mean, you guys know I'm the fun coach, and so like I get this, like I'm on this journey too. And for me, I've learned like there's only sustainability if we can enjoy all that because it's stretching and it's humbling over and over and over again. So for you, Marley, like how would you say, like what have you done, whether it be like habits or big decisions that have really helped you enjoy this ride?
Ooh, so something that I tend to do is I tend to overwork. And I've realized this over the course of the journey. It's really easy to like get into work and not want to stop working because as an entrepreneur, we don't have set hours. We create our own workflows, we create our own days. And, some days I'm most creative on a Saturday, some days I'm most creative on a Tuesday. So there's ebbs and flows with everything, but what I've realized is I have to create that balance for myself and have time for connection because I'm the type of person that I do have that tendency to work a lot and I can become a hermit really easily. And it's difficult because as adults, we all have different schedules and everyone has a different work schedule. But I've realized that when I carve out and make time for other people, is when I also like grow more as an individual and as an entrepreneur because we have to get outside of our own thoughts and our own feelings and our own heads. So being around other people and interacting with them has been something that's huge. And another really big part of my life is music. Like I love music and it's crazy because years ago I said, when I'm 30, I'm not going to go to music festivals and I'm not going to go to these events. Like I'm too old. And now I'm almost going to be 32 and I'm like, what was I thinking? Like why did I tell myself that was how my life should be? I was like, it's something I genuinely enjoy. I've met some of my best friends through these different events. Why would I want to stop doing that? I was like, I can't just work 24/7 and not have time for that play. So for me, creating that separation has been something that's huge because I know we can get into that work hard mode and like that high achiever mode, but you can only work so hard for so long until it really takes a toll, not only on you mentally, but physically. Like last year, I struggled through a lot of hormonal issues where I had zero energy, I had a lot of brain fog, I wasn't sleeping well. My estrogen was super high. And it was really years of just like high stress and just work, work, work. And I realized like I have to create separation now because if I don't, I'm going to be 60 and I'm going to be struggling with a lot of different like chronic and medical issues that could be avoided. Like you can't just have that high stress lifestyle and have no time for fun and creativity and kind of just to be. Like you don't have to always be doing something. And that has been a really hard part of my journey because mentally I feel like I'm never doing enough. But I realize that sometimes doing those things is actually giving me a lot more than I realize.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I couldn't agree more with everything. And I just love, you said it so perfectly. Connection, music, and play. in how you're doing that, which is so funny because the three fun pillars that I teach in my methodology is connection, creativity, and play. And they're all so important for us to be implementing in our own unique way. So, I mean, festivals is so perfect because it's like all of those things wrapped together in one. And that those are the best things, right? When you can get like all three of those elements paired together, because I'm sure you're being so creative with like how you're dressing and how you're doing your hair, and the music is so creative, and then you're playing and you're dancing, you're moving your body, and you're with people. So you're inspiring me. I actually have not been a festival girly, surprisingly. It's just not something that like anyone around me has done or I've made the effort to do, but you're definitely inspiring me to go try.
I would say it's kind of intimidating. So I can understand that. And it's something I got into like way later in life. I got into it when I was 25. So, a lot of people get into it in their teens and they're 20. And I was a lot older, which I was happy because I feel like that wasn't my whole life. And I'm happy that it wasn't my whole life. Like it's a big part of my life and it's something I enjoy. And like you mentioned, it is really creative because you can go out there, you can dress like a princess, you can be a bumblebee, you can literally be whoever you want to be. And nobody looks at you differently. Nobody judges you. Everyone else is being their most creative self. So, like, if you wanted to be something when you were a kid, you can go there and you can be that person and you can be your most authentic self. And something that my fiance has said that really resonates with me is that at music festivals, you don't meet people, you meet souls. It is the most authentic, real version of those people that you will ever meet because they're not trying to be someone else. They're just being themselves. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things. And I feel like everyone should experience it once in their life. There's all different kinds of music, right? Like you don't have to just like electronic or EDM. Like there's country music festivals, there's rap things. Like there's something for everyone, but just being in that environment around that much energy is something that like it just recharges your battery.
Yeah, I can imagine. Oh my gosh, I love the sound of that. And it sounds very healing for your inner child as well,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to play dress up and be seen and accepted in that way. That's beautiful. That makes me excited. Well, Marley, thank you so much for sharing. You've dropped some wisdom bombs on us today. I'm excited to listen to this back.
Yeah, me too. I know that I hope it helps someone else out there realize that like you can legitimately go through anything. I but you don't have to do it alone. And that's one of the biggest things that I hope people take from this is you don't have to do it by yourself. That is a choice a lot of times and it's a tough choice to admit that you want help or that you want guidance or that you don't want to do it alone, but it's something that will really help you level up in so many different ways that you didn't know were possible.
Absolutely. Yes, I couldn't agree more. And if people want to connect with you a little bit deeper, where would you send them to?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram. I mean, like everyone else, Instagram. So my name on there is Marley Razzano. And then I do also have a podcast. It's health, wellness, mindset, all kinds of different things. And that's just Marley the podcast. So super simple. I wasn't trying to, I was like, my name is fine. So let's just go with it. So those are the two main platforms that I utilize that I feel like are most effective to be able to connect with people.
Beautiful. And I love the simplicity of Marley, the podcast, by the way. I mean, our names are already unique and they're like sufficient, you know?
Yeah, I was like, I tried so hard to think of all different names, and I was like, let's just go with my name and we'll call it a day. And I was like, it's fine. It's stuck. So I'm so happy that I just went that route.
That's perfect. And I was also going to say, you can always change it. I have changed the branding, like the cover of my podcast like 5 times and now we're on name number 2. So everything is flexible, right?
The evolution.
Yes, absolutely. All right, Marley. Thank you so much for being on. You guys definitely go connect with her on Instagram. I'll have it linked below in the show notes and check out her podcast. And I appreciate you all being here today on the Limitless Living podcast. And I will see you back here next time.